Hi again guys. Now I wasn't actually intending to do another in the kitchen video, so for those who are hoping for something a bit different this time around, apologies. For those who like my in the kitchen videos, then woohoo! So yeah, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine in New Mexico, and talking about various things I've been baking lately and one thing or another. And she asked, have you ever made an angel food cake? And I said, you know what, I have no idea what an angel food cake is. I'll Google that and I'll take a look. And I did, and it seems like a fairly straightforward recipe, and it sounds like quite an interesting recipe, because what it is essentially is a fat-free cake. It uses a meringue mix, so it has egg whites, it has sugar, it has flour, and a couple of bits of flavouring. And it is baked in an angel food cake tin, which I do not have. Now basically that's a cake tin with a tube up the middle. So with a bit of improvisation, I have a small tin out of the cupboard, which the contents have been decanted into another tub and refrigerated. That's been washed out and cleaned, and that will sit in the middle of my springform tin, like so, making my funnelled cake tin, and hopefully that will do the trick. I believe the actual angel food tins have a vent up the centre, so it's moulded in there, but I think it vents. I don't know if that will make a difference to the baking, but fingers crossed it won't. So yes, as I say, a fat-free cake. Obviously it has sugar in, so it's not fat-free in the sense of you won't put weight on if you eat it, but it doesn't have any fats in the cake as a traditional cake mix would. So we're going to go ahead and mix this up. First of all, we're going to do the meringues, and we start with 5 egg whites. Essentially what I've done here is I've halved the recipe. So if you're making this for a family, double up on the recipe. So I have 5 egg whites, I have 125 grams of caster sugar, and 72.5 grams of plain flour. We're going to use a teaspoon of vanilla extract and half a teaspoon of almond extract for flavouring, and that is the whole cake. The actual baking process is more complicated. Now the recipe does call for cream of tartar as well, which I don't have. Now apparently this is to use during the meringue making process, and a pinch of salt will do the same job. It's something to do with stabilising the egg white and sugar mix. Now I've made meringues before using just egg white and sugar and always had good results, so I'm not too worried about that. Hopefully it will go well this time around. So first time doing this recipe, so let's get right into it. So first thing we need to do is get out the mixer and start with the meringue. Hey guys, one more in the kitchen. Hopefully the next video I'm going to do is actually going to be going back to models, but I've been having a bit of a run on the kitchen stuff just lately. But this is just a, before we get into the recipe, a quick tip on egg white and yolk separation. I've got a pot with egg yolks in there, we've got a cup with egg whites in there, and we've got a separate pot for separating the two. The reason for this is if you break all your yolks into one pot, say you're getting through 8 eggs, and on the 8th one you break the yolk into it, that's the whole lot shot, because once the yolk's mixed in, it's no good for meringues, that kind of thing. So basically the whole thing's shot, you need to start again. So you break them into a separate pot. If you mess up one egg, you've wasted one egg, you tip it, you start again, you clean the pot, you start again. Otherwise you separate them, you tip the egg white into there, and then you can save the yolks for other recipes and what have you. The process is very, very easy. You can buy fancy special separators, you don't need them. Simple as this. Quick tap on the eggshell, crack open the smallest portion first so that this is holding the yolk and the white inside. Tip the whole thing into your hand like so, and then just roll that yolk gently hand to hand like so until all the egg white has run between your fingers. Obviously wash your hands beforehand, makes sense, and pop that into there. There's your egg white into your cup. And there you are, easy as that. Here we go with the egg white portion, which you can see in there. 5 egg whites, pour that into there and start this whisking. So we whisk the egg whites until they're foamy, as you can see there. And at this point we add the salt, and then we add the vanilla extract and the almond essence. So that's 1 teaspoon of the vanilla extract for flavouring. So we need a half a teaspoon of almond, and then we'll whisk that some more. Okay, hopefully you can see now we're getting to the point where we've almost got soft peaks. I'm going to give that just another little bit longer, and then we can start adding the sugar. Now we start adding the sugar 1 tablespoon at a time, and we whisk it until that's all incorporated, and what we're looking for is a glossy kind of consistency. If you've made meringues before, you'll be familiar with what you're looking for, but it leaves a glossy consistency. We're almost there, as you can see here. Needs just a little bit more, but you can see we've got some fairly stiff peaks forming. And I want to share a little tip that I got from the Joy of Baking YouTube channel. Excellent channel with lots of very nice recipes. I recommend you check that out. That's Joy of Baking channel. What you do is you take a little of the meringue mix in your hand and you rub that between your fingers. And if you can feel any grittiness, that means that the sugar's not fully incorporated and dissolved into the mixture. Now that is very, very smooth, which means that the sugar's fully incorporated and mixed. If you feel any grittiness, you need to beat it for longer. I'm just going to beat that for a little longer anyway, just to try and stiffen that up a little bit more. But handy little tip there. So we'll be back in a moment with the flour. So we're going to use a sieve to sift in the flour, and we're going to incorporate that flour a little at a time to start with. Using a metal spoon, I'm going to fold that in, so turn and down the middle, turn, down the middle, turn, down the middle, turn, down the middle. And basically you're doing this as gently as you can because you're trying not to disturb the egg white mixture too much, so you're incorporating all the flour, but what you don't want to do is knock all of the air out of the egg white mixture, like so. And you can throw the whole lot in and do it at once. It just seems to be a little bit easier if you do it bit by bit like this. It is important that you don't beat this too vigorously at this point. Hence the reason that you're folding in the flour by hand. Now of course, I'm telling you this like I know, like I'm some kind of expert. In reality, this is actually the first time I've made this recipe, and I'm just following the advice of others and and recipes that I've read. So I'm hoping this is going to turn out very nicely. I think it will. I've got a feeling that this is going to be quite a nice cake. And I've got a feeling that I might very well be adding this to my little book of recipes and making it again at some point in the future. And as my previous cheesecake recipe, I can imagine that this could be jazzed up a little bit by the addition of a bit of fruit. So, okay, so there we go. That's the whole thing incorporated. That's the entire mix. We now decant this. And this is the bit that's going to be a little bit tricky because I need to keep this funnel sort of somewhere in the middle while I decant this gorgeous smelling mix as evenly as possible around this tin. Just give that a quick smooth over. And I'm quite pleased with the results of that one. Fantastic. Now this goes into a preheated oven, 180 degrees, for about 40 minutes. Now the full size recipe calls for 40 to 45, so what I'm going to do is check this after about 30 and see how it's doing. Minutes in the oven seems to be a good kind of time. Trusty old thin bladed knife inserted comes out clean. Nice brown crust on the top of the cake, as hopefully you can see there, and looks very nice. And now apparently what you have to do is leave it to cool. Unlike a normal cake where you could turn it out quite quickly after leaving it for a few minutes, with this you have to upend it, stand it on its vent so that it doesn't collapse in on itself apparently. So there we go. Remembering of course that the tin wasn't greased. The cake's had enough time to set, suspended upside down, and now we need to take it out of the mould. So because we didn't use any kind of because we didn't use butter to coat the mould, of course it's stuck, so what you'll need to do is run a sharp knife like so around the edge. And then we'll separate that part of it. Then we'll need to do something similar with the base. Separate it from the base. Like so. And finally with the centrepiece. Now obviously if you were using an actual tin designed for this, you would do this as part of the separating with the rest of the cake. I'm going to cut myself a piece of this so I can give it a try. You can see there you've got a lovely light, soft, springy sponge. That's really nice. You get the flavour of the vanilla and the almond coming through. You've got an incredibly light sponge, really, really light and springy, and that really is very nice. I'm a little surprised that I've never actually heard of this before, but this is certainly one that I'll be adding and making again in future. You get a nice crisp top to the cake, and that's just really incredibly soft. But yes, very, very nice. Angel food cake, surprisingly easy to make. You can make, if you have a mould which is specifically for this cake, which would be a little larger with the funnel built into the middle, then you could double the recipe and make a much, much thicker one. But that is delicious, and I can imagine that baked with fruit that would be absolutely fantastic. But very, very good. I can recommend that one. First time I've tried it, I'm quite pleased with the results. So I hope you like this. Thank you for watching.